The quality of our reality is defined by the stories which we believe in. Everything is a story, even the scientific story. The art of living is being able to move between different stories. For certain purposes we use the scientific story. For certain purposes we use political stories. For certain purposes we use cultural and social and domestic stories. But spiritually we realize everything is stories. We do not need to be concerned about dividing things between real and imagination. It's all imagination. It's all stories. Don't try and say, no, that's real and this is a story. That's your cognitive process at work. That's your filtering mind at work. Embrace it all as stories. Stories which have their own rules. Stories which have their own tone. In this way you can go for the best stories. Choose the very best stories. Engage with them. Engage with them knowing that there's no distinction between imagination and reality. This is opening yourself up to the fullness of the infinite potential of consciousness. And it's one of the wonderful things about the Hindu framework. It has such wonderful stories. It has such wonderful imagination, which it enters into wholeheartedly. I don't think it's any coincidence that some of the greatest scientists are Hindus. Their mind is nourished by this tremendous imagination which their culture has bequeathed to them. And they enter into the story of science. But they can still be a very good Hindu, just as you get scientists that are Muslim or Christian. They move between the different stories. So Ram's been asking about miraculous supernatural beings. And Vasishta tells us that the whole of space is full of them. And we can connect with them if we want to. But don't try and bring them into the scientific story. This is the mistake that many people make nowadays. They assume that reality is scientific, and that for their beliefs to be credible, they have to make their beliefs scientific. So they're trying to explain one story in terms of another. Science is not the yardstick of reality. It's one particular reality which has got its own benefits and its own power, but it's not the only one. If you take science as your yardstick, then that's your reality. You can't have it both ways. Don't try and make your religious beliefs scientific. That's a corruption of your religious beliefs. Enter into your religious beliefs for the wonderful benefits that they deliver. We see a lot of this. Many Muslims like to point out that the Quran is scientific, that it contains lots of scientific knowledge, long before this scientific knowledge was discovered. That's not what the Quran's about. And why do Muslims feel the need to do this, to justify the Quran in terms of science? It's because they've unconsciously subscribed to the idea that science is the measure of reality. There's absolutely no basis whatsoever for adopting science as the yardstick of our reality. And if you think there is a basis for that, then examine it. It's usually tied up with ideas about control. You're assuming that what is real is what gives us some semblance of control. So if reality is about control, again, that's another story. And again, I would suggest it's a rather impoverished one. Just as this world is illusory and imaginary, even so are the worlds of the Siddhas and the Celestials. By their psychic power, these worlds have been stabilized. Even so, you can make the world of your own imagination or fancy stable by intense contemplation. So this is when you perform one of these intricate sadhana exercises. The Siddhas or perfected ones have thus made their worlds stable. Others find this difficult. This universe is filled with the infinite consciousness, and the universe is whatever image the consciousness entertains within itself. We do this every night when we go into our dream. Consciousness entertains itself and it becomes real. It becomes real for us. The Siddhas, or the sadhakas who perform intense sadhana visualization exercises, these things become real. They are entering into the reality of their own imagination. Some people can do this quite naturally, people like William Blake and Emanuel Swedenborg. Other people have to work hard at it. That is, if you want to do such a thing. The universe has not been created by or out of something else. No such cause existed at the beginning of creation. We do this anyway. We actually are creating our own world by our own belief. This is the world that we live in. The world is mind created. The world is the world of our imagination. It is whatever notion or image arises in consciousness. In one's own imagination a mountain arises, though in truth there is no such mountain. Such is the nature of the world appearance too. Therefore the knowers of this truth live here as if they were walking trees. Trees are unmoved. They're wooden. And this is one of these unappealing similes that we often get, but we have to understand that from the inside the sage is established in the reality of infinite consciousness. All these universes that appear in Brahman exist in it as non-different from it, just as the waves exist in the ocean non-different from it. Though this universe seems to have existed for a long time, and though it seems to be a functional reality, still it is pure void, and it is no more real than an imaginary city. We imbue it with this reality. Though people have experienced its existence, it does not exist, even as one sees one's own death in a dream. What's the reality of your death in a dream? What could be more real than that, but yet it's unreal? The unreal appears to be real. The reality and the unreality of the world are two aspects of the Supreme Being. This is that final discrimination that we make between real and unreal, real and imaginary. We have this modern prejudice to say that imagination is less real, but that's just a false discrimination. Even the concept of Supreme Being is only a concept, not the truth. Let it all be this way, or let the truth be different from all this. Where is the need to be confused and confounded? Abandon the pursuit of the fruits of actions. You are enlightened. Do not exert yourself in vain pursuit. Be as you are.